Welcome to the Rinse and Size Studios. I'm your host, Jyoty, and today I am joined by RedLight, Emerald, and Shadow Child, who have all been a huge part of the UK's underground club scene, as we discuss their influences as DJs, but also reminisce over early rave memories. I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I can tell people what you do, but I guess no one's better at it than yourself. I have with me Emerald, Shadow Child, and RedLight. Shall we start with you, Shadow Child? Can you tell the people who you are and what you do?
I'm Shadow Child. Hi.
I like that you know what camera you're looking into. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, what do I do? Well, I make music first and foremost. The DJing came second for me, but we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, I'm just been obsessed with electronic music since being very, very small, growing up around 80s. New wave music with my mum and that whole thing, and then I don't know. We'll get onto it, but I'm obsessed with making music. I have been since a young age, and I feel very privileged to to have my music on the map. It's great. It's great to be in conversation with you all today as well.
So if people were to ask you, so what is it that you do? You would definitely kind of emphasize that you make music and then DJ comes after.
Yeah, 100%. I love DJing. I'm definitely a DJ, but producer, whatever. Yeah, that's me. That's me. Yeah.
Emerald, my rinse twin.
My darling Jyoty.
For those who've been living under a rock for the last few years, I mean, I cannot imagine people do not know what you do. But do tell us in a nutshell what you're all about.
Hello, everyone. I'm Emerald, and I'm a DJ and I'm a presenter as well. So recently I've been calling myself a broadcast journalist.
So official. Very official.
Sounds pretty
I feel like I should be here now.
Which it sounds a little bit more professional than just saying that you're like a presenter who does radio or whatever. And technically it's true. I'm a broadcast journalist.
But you're also a presenter
DJ.
on screen. So there you go.
Exactly. I'm a presenter on screen. I do a little bit of TV online. I've been doing radio, especially at Rinse, for about 7 years now.
CV.
It's your turn in a minute. It will be my 7th year on Rinse in October.
Oh my goodness.
Which is mental. I don't know where that time went. Started off as a presenter, and DJing was something I did before but wasn't doing it very well before. I was like Shadow Child, obsessed with electronic music from a young age, but never really took it seriously until I had the opportunity at 2, which came with the territory of being on Rinse. And it kind of went hand in hand. At the beginning I finally learnt to mix properly, and here I am 7 years later.
Just say you joined Rinse when you were 2, or did I get that wrong? I tuned out for a second, sorry.
Basically, that's what she said.
All right, okay.
In she used more words, but that's what it came down
All right,
to.
that's what I kind of summed it up
She
to
was
be.
2, she's 9. She's going to turn 9 in October. That's what's happening.
Congratulations.
So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
RedLight, I mean, sorry, you're kind of going to have to follow up with a little list yourself.
Well, it's the same as these two, really. Just, mucking about with music, and that's about it.
No CV?
So what do you do now?
Muck about with
Just
music.
muck about with music.
Yeah.
But you are, hopefully, when I ask more questions throughout the conversation, you're going to share some stuff with us.
Yeah, of course. But I guess it's just that, isn't it? It's like just, Rinse as well, playing at Rinse and stuff. And just, it's like, I don't know, you just like, music is kind of like, it's just always there with you. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you don't really see it as this thing.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like what you do, I guess.
And you kind of live and breathe in different fields and industries within music.
Yeah, well, Well, in the UK, we're lucky to have lots of different angles and ways to express yourself and be creative. So, there's we've all done a lot of different things within this room,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll get it out of you throughout this conversation.
I think you just did.
Yeah, I have my ways. Okay, so throughout this series of these different podcasts we've done over the weeks or months, I should say, we always kind of have a focus point, and that is usually a genre, but that's not what we're stuck to. It's not all we're going to talk about. Today, the kind of theme, the thread is UK-based music, where it started, what your early memories were, what does it mean to you, and where do we see it going? I guess the first question I would want to ask is, what does UK-based mean? Like, what is the definition? Just because I think it's so broad, and it's also kind of the baby within UK subcultures and underground sounds. I'll start with you. What does UK bass? Yeah, come on. We're gonna have to do it at some point. What does it mean, or like, how would you define that genre?
I don't think it is a genre. You know, it's like it's interesting because it's an attachment, isn't it? It's like the word UK bass. It's like it you know, it's good for journalism to say like, oh, they're UK bass or this or that. But I guess it's just. It's so broad. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Music with bass in. Like
that's everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Most tracks.
Yeah.
Sonically.
So when that tag first came out, I was like, well, what's this? Like, okay, I'm being attached to something.
Yeah.
You know, someone attaches you to something. And as a creative, generally you don't want to be attached to anything because you want to create your own path and make your own moves. So it's like, no, like, what are you talking about? I'm not that. But you know, whatever. It's just like, I guess it's just, you know, it's like a rack in a record shop. You know, let's put them over there. They can sit over there, or like Beatport, or you know, it's so people can, I don't know, just put you into a folder in a library or something
to categorize.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah,
I got you.
But it's like it's very broad, and I feel like, you know, I couldn't say it was this or that. You couldn't be like, boom, that is UK bass. Like if you looked at like British hip hop or, you know, like dubstep, you could say that is dubstep, that is hip hop, but you couldn't say that is house, really, or that is UK bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It all merges. Do you know what I mean? And even like, you know, like certain, like, because it could be a 4/4. It could be like a drill beat. It could be, you know, it could be anything that is a collage of a sound, and then someone will be like, that's UK bass.
That I get what you're saying, especially because the last two we did were very focused on the on grime, but also the birth of grime through garage. Right. And our guest then had really specific eras, like between
entry points,
97 and these years, this sound was happening. And what I'm going to ask you for your opinion, because you have kind of joined the industry or the game of DJing within this sound a little bit later. But what I know you from is, yes, you are often categorized as someone who plays UK bass music and everything that kind of is attached to it. But the music you play, I often really recognize the vocals, the samples that are in those tracks from other genres that I grew up with or am still a fan of. So you got, what I hear when you DJ is a bit of a collection of all these different, like there's Vogue in there, there's Jersey in there, there's hip hop vocals being looped over again. How do you see it?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I play an amalgamation of lots of different sounds, but the underlying theme of all of them can be categorized as UK bass. But like RedLight is saying, UK bass is so difficult to define, and I think the term UK bass is maybe more relevant now than it was then, and applies more now than it was then, especially for a lot of new producers. For example, people like Breaker, people like Jyoty Mitsu, for example, Lucy, all those kind of new producers that are making music that is a blend of so many different sounds, but all has the same kind of sound to it. But the beautiful thing is that it could be a 4/4, or it could be two-step, or it could even be a bit of Brock. Like, it could be so many different things, but it kind of works all as one. And I think that's why I take to that sound so much, because when I first started playing, I didn't really know what I wanted to play, because I'm someone who was obsessed with radio and collecting so many different things, maybe because of the influence from my dad being a DJ when he was younger and growing up with that. I never could make my mind up about where I wanted to sit and where I wanted to be. And I think one of the reasons why I do like this sound that is now being called UK bass, or like 130 breaks, that kind of thing now, which takes from so many different genres, is that in itself. I like how vast it is, and how like there aren't really any rules to what specifically it has to sound like, but it does still have its own sound.
This is why you get Emerald on the show. Do you know what I mean?
We can go now.
Yeah, like we're done. We're done. Sewn up.
Has that answer changed a little bit of your answer, or anything to add?
Like for me, like, you know, I spoke to Emerald on the phone like the other week, and I said like, boom, like you're doing a good job through lockdown of like putting new music out there and like letting other people see what's about. And she's just done that again, because like I didn't even know what 130 breaks was. But I make music at 130 sometimes with breaks in, but like I'm not a label guy. Like I don't know anything really. I just make music. So when you get a broadcaster in like Emerald who's gonna break it down for you in a way that you can't describe it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm
she can tell us what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you do come from a background of talking about music.
Yeah,
making it.
I spend a lot of time talking to people that make music, so I guess I pick up terms from here and there, and I can kind of maybe do a better job of guessing what it is that we want to say it is, you know? But like the tune you sent me the other day, Hugh, sent me in an email the other day.
Right.
I would call that UK bass, like 130 breaks.
Oh, right, okay.
I would put that within what I was just talking about.
Right, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
There you go. So in case anyone asks what that tune is or what it sounds like,
there you
now
go.
you know what to tell them. Do we think maybe even it has something to do a little bit with, maybe my mind is just going at places, but if you come into the industry as a producer, as someone who makes music, you don't as much have to talk about what you do because people know you from the beginning as someone who creates. Whereas if, like an Emerald, you actually come from a background as a radio presenter, more of voice and a face, and then you start grafting to actually become part of that industry, you are questioned a lot more because you're kind of like, you weren't always doing this. So do we think that maybe plays a role into why you have articulated so well?
Yeah, I think I was always asked to describe what I was doing, and I mean, unlike these guys, you guys are part of what I'm trying to describe and talk about and play. Like, I don't make music. I mean, I play the piano, I make music in different ways, but I don't produce electronically. So for me, I guess for you guys, you don't have to define it. It's kind of my job more to define it than it is for yours, right? You're making it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with RedLight on it. I go in the studio not with a genre there at all.
Yeah.
I make music and what comes out. And that's why there's so many aliases sometimes, because like that is, you know, it doesn't quite fit where Shadow Child is going. So I'll do it under one of the other projects. You know what I mean? For me, if I went in there, and I did used to do it, and I'm sure you've been the same in the past, as you know, don't get me wrong, I've had big success in this kind of area of music, same as RedLight as well, where you have a tune like 23 or String Thing or something when I started as Shadow Child that kind of blows up, and then that's people know what you are then. It's just like, oh, that's what I am now, is it? Okay, all right, well, that must be the path I'm going down. But actually, as someone who just makes music first, as I was saying, I can't sit there and do that. It just doesn't creatively do me any favours at all. And I'm influenced by so many different things growing up that I like to reflect in my music in one way or another, whether that's rave or jungle or even something much more 80s or whatever as well. If that's how I feel, I just need to be free to be able to kind of do that. So whilst I love genres because it helps you to grow a fan base and a crowd and everything, and subgenres as well, it isn't, you know, we were just kind of laughing about it, but it isn't helpful creatively sometimes. But ultimately, we need that on the other end. We need that identity. We need that for promoters seem to need that, and radio stations need that, and magazines and the press and everyone needs that to be able to say, oh, that's what that is. It's like RedLight said, it's not necessarily us that needs that, and it's a bit of a funny one.
It's more the aftermath of the creative process, isn't it?
Yeah. See, I never wanted to be known like as me. I just wanted my music to be the thing, the entity that's known and loved. Do you know what I mean? It's not really, and I still kind of have a bit of that kind of about me where I don't really see what the fuss is like. I see what the fuss is if a tune blows up, because I see that from other people's music that I love. So if that happens to something I've created, then I see it as a separate thing. It's not. It is a personal thing, but it's like, I don't know. I just can't sit there and view it that way. But it kind of feels like I create it for everyone else. I don't necessarily create it for me. I'm proud of it and I love it and I love what it's done. I love the connection that it gives me to other people. But as in a genre and a name, just to reflect on that, it's not something that is that important to me, you know, although I do respect it.
You've go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just had a thought, right? Because like you were saying, you were referencing like rave, jungle, hardcore. I'm just thinking like UK bass, maybe we've coined it this term because UK bass can be so many different things, but it draws a lot from sounds that are so associated with the UK, like two-step garage, jungle, rave, all those kinds of sounds.
Sound system culture, I guess, right?
And those are at the forefront of that blend of sounds. Even though you might have some techno in there, you might have some more 4/4, it can be a bit housey. The undercurrent of all of that are the sound system sounds and all those genres that we firmly associate with coming from the UK and being what the UK dance floors, and especially in London, sound like.
The forefathers, I guess, isn't it? Like the guy called Gerald,
Yeah.
the Groove Riders, you know, all the people who like laid down the foundations really for all of us, you know, like to then make all these different sounds. And like it's like for me, I never went to school. I went raving, so it was like the school was the rave, you know. It was like the music was the college. Like jungle drum and bass was like, oh shit, it's this, how do they do that, boom boom boom, you know. It's like you get immersed in the culture, and those lot really created UK bass. We're just like another passenger in like the British amalgamation of sound,
right?
You know?
I like how you became quite poetic there when you were talking about the rave was my school.
Right, wow. I don't know.
I thought you were going to say jungle and garage were my subjects. I thought that's what you were going to say.
One thing,
I got an A star.
Hey. One thing I think is important to remember is that house music became a household name, dance music, whatever, early 90s. Once it's there, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like that then becomes like RedLight said, a vehicle for in it with the subgenres, and then for us to kind of
you were Dave Spoon first, didn't it?
Yeah,
and that was like you made some big tunes under Dave Spoon, isn't it?
I was going to ask you because you mentioned it briefly in your last answer. You both have worked under different alter egos, monikers, whatever you want to call it, and I want to know why. Where does that come from? The need to, or the want to change your artist name and different sounds being made under those names?
I think now because you're so in touch with your followers, your audience, your fans, whatever you want to call them, and you know, you're so in touch with that, and you're very aware, or I am anyway, of their connection to you through a certain style of music, maybe, or a certain track that you've done. I mean, it's all in front of us now. You've only got to type in on Spotify and you can see exactly what everyone loves about you. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's like, I mean, the biggest thing on mine is the remix that I did in 2014.
I'll just say one thing.
It's not really where I'm at now at all. You know what I mean?
The problem with Spotify is, and I don't know.
Here we go.
No, I love Spotify. This isn't a cuss to Spotify, but the problem is with Spotify is the top 5 because the top 5 is manipulated by the major labels. So whatever tune you've had on majors will be the top 5. You could have another tune that's done double the amount, but it won't be in your top 5.
Yeah. What? I didn't know that. I didn't know that either.
I've got tunes.
This is a whole other podcast.
No, that's a different podcast. But so, like, you know, it's a continuation of all that. You're constantly trying to get away and change your identity in music because it's creativity. You don't paint the same picture. You know, like Blimmin' Matisse don't do the same cutout every day.
Are you sure you didn't go to school? Because that was a good reference.
Yeah. He's done it again. He keeps doing it.
He's surprising us. He sets the bar low, you see, and then he keeps rising up.
We are currently in school. Class has started now.
For me, the whole Dave Spoon sound ended up being, I was just making house music, and then that went to the electro house thing, as everyone called it, and then it went to the EDM thing. You know,
it went fidget first, though, didn't it?
Oh yeah, we had the fidget thing. Yeah, the very, very UK as well.
That was kind of actually, you know what? That was like the first UK bass.
Yeah, it kind of was. Outside of
garage,
jungle
and jungle and garage.
Yeah. But I had like a house, like
What are you talking about? Wait. Specify what. Actually, what are we talking about now? What was it?
It was. Well, it was like...
He was part of it.
Well, yeah, but I didn't mean to be. I was just making music.
But the listeners haven't actually heard what you're talking about. What?
Red Light will describe fidget for us right now.
There we go. Okay.
Well, I can't really, but I guess like there was prominent producers from the UK doing something
Switch.
at that point. Switch, who was also
Hervé.
Yeah. He was also like Switch was heavily involved in like MIA and like, you know, he kind of blew up and went to America, but they were, you know, it was kind of like Fabric Room 1, wasn't it? Jungle was in Room 2 at Fabric,
right.
And then it was like Breakbeat, and then Breakbeat kind of it like changed, and then Fidget came in, didn't it, in Room 1? Is that right?
Yeah,
And
something like that. Yeah, and it became
Sindon.
It became like, I think it's really kind of been probably the coolest version of like of kind of, I was going to say UK bass, as we're talking about that today. You know, we're basing it on it. There has been other cooler versions of it, I guess, but as within house music, I would say that was one of the cooler things, because the thing is, when Shadow Child started, so hang on, let me just rewind a bit to Spoon, because I stopped with Spoon because everyone on my circuit went to the States, and I used to be touring with Steve Angelo and the Swedes. They went and did Swedish House Mafia. David Guetta used to ring me up for advice on how to use Reason, this bit of software.
Right.
Professor, how do I do this? He used to call me. It's hilarious.
Right.
So and I was just like, you know, this whole sound became like hands in the air trance music to connect in America, and I'm like, this just ain't me. It's not where I come from.
Became money.
Yeah. Yes, I have moments where I've done more commercial releases and benefited from that. I've had chart successes and things like this, but I didn't want to go to America and stand there and pretend, really, because I would have been pretending that I'm loving this music, because I got to be into what I'm doing at the end of the day. So for me, it was about removing boundaries, because I could have, in fact, the first Shadow Child record string thing was made during that time as Spoon, and I just didn't know what to do with it because I knew it wouldn't connect with the crowd.
Because the split was, I guess, that Dizzy Rascal remix, right? You did a Sirens mix, and that was what was that?
Dave
Flex.
Spoon? Yeah, Dave Spoon mix of Flex.
That was kind of like early Shadow Child, right?
Really? It was. You can hear some of the sound in that. It's like a lot of people didn't know Shadow Child was me for about 6 months till I started playing gigs.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it's cool. I'll be turning up at these cool little basements with like 100 people and no one's going to know. It's like, so the first gig I walk into, these guys at the front pointing at me saying, it's you. Like I've been waiting to find out who it is. So yeah, the cover was blown. Not that I was really going for that. But just rewinding to what your question was. For me, it's removing creative boundaries.
Yeah.
I felt really in the corner as a Spoon. Huge expectation of me. A lot of fun times. A lot of great music. That Dizzy remix. I actually played it on my last Rinse show last week. Right. It was mad that you mentioned that. Yeah, because I was like, I haven't played that for ages. I'm just going to play it. There were some really great moments, you know, and you know, it's not stopped forever like you've had to, you know, with what you do. There's if the music is right at some point, maybe it'll come back. But I'm not doing the EDM thing. Just wasn't for me at the end of the day.
You.
No.
It's interesting that you said that you want to kind of get away from maybe a kind of creative box that people had made up with a certain name. I had a conversation with DJ Naughty not too long ago, who's obviously one of the pioneers of UK Funky, and he was explaining
what a scene as well. Funky, forgot about Funky. Insane. You got to put that in there. Like Funky was sick.
We had a conversation with Naughty, Apple, Scratcher Deviate, like a couple of people, and Naughty said something really interesting. He said he actually had an alter ego that he created himself, because he was a house DJ who kind of fell in love with UK Funky, but it felt at that time UK Funky was considered a bit tacky.
Got frowned upon, didn't it?
It was frowned upon. So he had to create Naughty as his name to DJ under when he wanted to play UK Funky sets, and it wouldn't interfere with his house bookings and kind of his image that he had built up.
Do you know what? I'll add to that, because this is the thing, with the UK sound and everything, we create all these mad subgenres, of amalgamation of all of us, and like feeding off each other, and like this, and then someone destroys us for it. They're like, this is tacky, that's not this, that's not pure, it's blah. And it's like, well, what the fuck? Like, what do you want?
This is what I was going to ask all of you. Do we feel like UK based, just when you hear the name, does it have some sort of negative connotation to it?
Honestly, every time I bring it up, every time I say UK based, somebody goes, "Oh, I hate that term," and I'm like, "Okay, fair enough, you hate it, but like."
But do you hate the sound?
I mean, I have nothing against the term UK based. I think it's a great way to put like all these young producers that I'm talking about at the like I spoke about earlier, all these young producers who are from the UK who are making this amalgamation of music. Like that's kind of is what it is.
I think now, like now there's been 10 years of it.
Yeah.
10, 11, 12 years of it, the evolution. And maybe like, I think a lot of it came from promoters and agents and the money side of how you make music. Like they're like, oh, well, you know, that's gonna bring that crowd, or that's not gonna sell us.
It's marketing.
That's not gonna sell us the £20 ticket.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like people get marginalised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they want to marginalise a sound to make themselves more money.
And you know
that's what happens with funky. That's what happens with that's what happens with drum and bass. That's what happens with, and then it comes back round, and the same people who wanted to marginalise you, all of a sudden they're like,
they're all back in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? This has happened so many times over the years. Since
like
the
a
late
circle.
80s, you had the acid house lot
Right.
who didn't like rave. They looked down their noses on rave.
Right.
Like, ugh. That's why a lot of these documentaries that are amazing that you see on the TV about, you know, what happened in particular in the UK, it kind of fast forwards from acid house through like. You don't get hardcore. There's a little bit of shut up and dance sometimes,
Right.
but it goes straight into Goldie, into jungle. There's that really important step that gets missed out,
The
which was the
fabrics.
rave thing.
Which is ironic, really, because so much of this new 130 break sound and this UK based stuff is hardcore.
Yeah.
And all the drums you're hearing
100%.
are samples from then. So it's funny that nobody's really put the spotlight on it that
But
it
it's
deserves.
a lot of old acid house heads, and I say this respectfully.
Yeah.
You know, putting these films together, and it was a thing that was looked down the noses on. That's from what I've seen of those documentaries. I think that's why. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone will tell me I'm wrong.
No, it's true
fair
because
play,
it's just that, isn't it? It's like there's always something cooler to, you know, be associated with, or, you know, like, oh, you know what I mean?
That, especially
That's the sound.
bit. Yeah. But it's funny talking about what your
sound. Is that UK based sound?
Get it in the tune, mate. Get it in the tune.
But talking about sounds that you're associated with, I think some
my
people
head.
or a lot of people tuning in right now may not know about your history with some very big iconic hip hop artists that you have been involved with. You've also made remixes of artists like Mary J. Can we talk about that period of time and what that was like and how it then evolved to what we know you for now?
Yeah.
Go on.
What do you want to know?
I want to know, how did that journey, because, for example, talking to Shadow Child, you've mentioned, you know, from the 80s to house, it is kind of like an electronic journey of sound. I wanted to sound like the journey of sound.
Good sample.
But when I read it, that is the sample.
Yeah,
It's
I
literally,
love that. We got
this
it.
is a journey into sound.
Yeah, I'm into that.
But when I looked into your history and what you've done, there's a lot of genres and sounds involved that the younger kids wouldn't necessarily even think is possible to put all of those under one person's kind of CV.
Well, I just think like it just goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. It's like, for me, it's like that's what I'm into. Like I like pushing myself, and I don't know how to answer it really. I'm just like I'm a creative.
So how did Mobb Deep and Raekwon come about?
Well, that was one trip actually. No, that was one trip that I was in the States. Me and my manager at the time was in the States, Henry, shouts to Henry, and in New York, and Raekwon was like, yeah, he wants to do a session. So I was like, what, Raekwon? Yeah.
So his people reached out to.
Apparently, I don't know, but that's the message I got.
And under what name were you kind of working?
RedLight at the time.
It was RedLight.
But I was working at Universal at the time, and I think in America like when you have a banner of a major behind you, they're like, yeah, money. They're like, you know, it's easier to get in a room with people. If you're just independent, they're like, what, coming from the UK? I don't know.
What's in it for me?
Yeah, but kind of. Not cynically, but it's just business in America.
Yeah.
American business is different to British business. And they're way more straightforward in that sense, because they're just like, yo, let's do it. Like, let's connect. Let's make something happen. Let's make a banger. And you're like, yeah, sick.
Americans are known for the sentence, let's build. That's
Yeah.
like their thing, isn't it?
Right. And well, look what they built. They've built a huge country. And it's like, you know, it works, you know. And so I was over there and I linked with Raekwon and we made a couple of tunes. And you know, he's a proper geezer. He's safe and like just he was like, yo, Europe. Or just a he was like, yo, Europe, this one's sick, man. Like,
What he called you, Europe.
Europe. And we just got like drank a lot and made a couple of bangers in the studio, which I used to love going to the studio. I like loud music. Yeah, I'm into just like expression, loud fucking music. And this studio was like it was Platinum Studios in New York, right? And its tagline on the website was the loudest studio in New York.
Love that.
So I was like, yeah, we're booking that one. And it's just got like huge like Asperger's monitor system in there and that. And so we made a couple of tunes and then one of them came out, Get Money. And then we shot a video. We went back and shot a video. We're like, yo, can we shoot a video? So my mate came back and we shot a video in the snow in New York. That was mad. And then we went.
Can we find this video on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on there somewhere. Yeah,
Love that.
And then I linked with Mobb Deep because they were recording an album at Red Bull Studios in New York at the time. R.I.P. to Prodigy, he's no longer with us. And he was great. You know, he just like, we did a couple of tunes actually. I don't know where the other ones are because they were on their hard drive.
Okay.
So they've never seen the light of day. But we just did a session and Havoc was there and he just got drunk again and rolled out a couple of tunes and they were safe and Prodigy was just like bang.
That's
just
insane that you get to say you've actually worked with Prodigy.
Yeah,
I think for so many, especially like hip hop heads, just.
Yeah, it was a moment for me, man. I grew up listening to them like, you know, Shook Ones was like, when I was 14, that was on my headphones the whole time. It was like jungle and hip hop. And like Shook Ones, like that was it. So it was like, to do that was a moment, but
Did you ever feel the need that you had to justify to either ends of the spectrum of sounds why you were doing what you were doing? Did the people in the electronic scene question why or how a Mobb Deep collab came about?
At the time, what I did, I brought the vocals back and I redesigned the music so it sounded completely different. And I can remember sending it back to him and he was like, when did I make this tune? And we're like, no, and he was like, oh, okay, sick. And then we put it out, and it got some like, you know, people, and I got my friend going, I'm a lion in the jungle, and I want to go wow at the beginning of it, and we turned it into this whole different thing, like, and you know, no one had heard him do something like that before, so and that was fun to like amalgamate British and American sound together. You know, he was talking about all that American grease, and then we had like the UK kind of style beat on there, and it was a fun time to do that. And at the time I was doing an album X Colour, and the whole out, you know, I had an orchestra on there. It was like the end of an era for me on a major, so I still managed to capitalize on their money a bit and like pull some money out of them and just made this weird album with like loads of like different sounds on, and it was like a story of these two people. It like even had a thread in it and but that's lost on everyone because, you know, that's the thing, you like people just want you to make a banger that they can spin in the club. They don't want to like album with
or they want you to keep repeating that big moment that you had. Where you connected. They want a repetition. And that's the last thing, like you said earlier, I think that we actually really want to do. If it happens and it comes together, I think that's a different story. But sitting there creatively doing that is like.
Yeah, I
not-
can't imagine. I don't even like playing the same set twice. Like for
Yeah, there
me,
you go.
for me, every single time I play, I want it to be completely different to the last time, which is actually a double-edged sword because it creates so much work for yourself. And with doing a regular radio show, you're constantly having to trawl through so much newness and really like, it's hard to create something brand new every single time for that period of time, but
it works.
But that's what I love. That's the best thing about it for me is discovery and doing that all the time. Otherwise, I'll just get bored.
You got to put the effort in. Like in all creative things, you just got to put the effort in and. You know, DJing, like people are like, oh, you can just go on and da 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 da. But you know what you're doing, it takes effort. Like me and Shadow Child probably spend more time making music, so less time listening to other people as well, because you're just zoned into that zone. You can like, you know, like farm loads of different tunes and like, this 130 breaks.
That one stuck with you.
But also on the flip side, though. I mean, I was talking to Genius about this the other day because he's always like, come on, Emerald, you never play the same song more than once. Like, there's no such thing as a hit anymore. Right. And I do understand that. But the thing is, it's different. Like, if I'm doing like a festival circuit, of course, there's going to be tunes that are going to be in my sets every single time. But lockdown has been very different to that because we haven't been playing out. So it's been a very different creative process. But I do understand that unless you're banging out the same tune all the time, then hits for electronic music cease to exist. So it is important to do that.
And I guess every DJ has their own thing that they're known for. You might be known for playing tunes one after the other that no one's ever heard of because you spend so much time researching, and another DJ might play repetitive tunes, but then they do these tricks on the decks, like technical things that everyone has their own thing.
And I think it's different for different genres. Like if we are really talking about UK bass here, it's especially this new wave of 130 breaks and similar things. It's like a lot of these producers are brand new and these hits haven't been created yet because it is such a new thing for so many of these new younger producers. So it still takes its time to create anthems within that genre.
As well. When you see all the new kids coming with like shit that you're like super into, it just gives you more inspiration to get up off your Zimmer frame and get back to the lab and like go again, because you're like, damn, these kids are killing it. Like, come on, let's go.
Talking about inspirations, Emerald, I'll start with you. Who were some people that really made you want to say, okay, I get the radio thing now. I'm good at presenting and broadcasting, but my hands are itching. I want to get on the decks. Was it the DJs? Were the artists?
I always, whenever someone asks me to name names or clubs, I can never remember. My memory just doesn't work like that. But for me, I think it was being here. It was being at Rinse. I mean, not in this studio, but like being in the Truman Brewery studio, which was when I first started. I think it was just being completely inside that culture and people like yourself, like Shadow Child and RedLight, being around all the time and coming in and out of the studio. It was so exciting that I was like, you know, I was doing daytime radio for ages and I was DJing at the same time, and I was like, I want to be playing what I'm playing on the weekend, what I'm playing in the club on radio, and I want to be talking about that now. And like you were saying earlier, I have to be into what I'm doing. And I found that after a while with daytime, I was just getting a bit like, I kind of felt like I was lying to the listeners. And I was like, I don't actually really feel anything for half of these songs that I'm playing. So let me switch things up a little bit and do my weekly specialist show. And it's amazing, and I feel so much more fulfilled flipping it on its head now and doing that kind of thing. And like I was doing my BBC residency recently, and it was really nice to be able to be put on that kind of platform and be talking about music that I really loved, rather than going in from an entry point that maybe 7 years ago I would have really appreciated, but now, because things have changed for me, I wouldn't have been satisfied. I don't think so. I think it was just generally being immersed in somewhere like Rinse FM and being around that culture made me really itch to change things.
I am going to ask you for some DJs though.
No. I can't.
And just because you're naming a few doesn't mean that she doesn't care about the ones that have remained unnamed. They're just not at the front of your brain.
I'm trying to think at the time,
or even some people right now.
I mean, at the beginning of being at Rinse, I was on tour with Katie B for 2 years. So I was her tour DJ.
I mean, you've toured with MIA and KTV.
Yeah, and after that, I went on to be MIA's tour DJ, which was great. We did incredible things, like we supported Busta Rhymes, Lauryn Hill in America. I ended up doing backing vocals as well, which I did not sign up for. It was forced into.
I just saw see videos of Emerald with a microphone in the hand, and I was like, wait, what?
I know. It was amazing, and I guess being around that so much. Of course, there were DJs, but I can't think of them now.
That's okay.
I can't think of them
Have
right
a
now.
little think.
But okay, I've just had a flashback
of
a club that I used to go to a lot, which was Matter, which is the one in the Millennium Dome, right?
Yeah.
And they used to have forward nights there a lot. And I remember seeing you play a lot, and I remember seeing Plastician play a lot as well, and Magnetic Man. And I guess when I first started going raving, it was during the height of dubstep era, which was such a soundtrack. Like dubstep era soundtracks, my early teens, basically. And I started going out illegally when I was like 15, maybe a little bit younger with my very corrupting sister. And I remember those moments and being in that club a lot. Very, very much so, visually in my mind so much, and that was hugely inspiring for me. Which is probably why I'm playing these kinds of sounds now. It's because that's where the love of it started for me.
Someone said to me a while ago, and it really stuck with me. It's like you end up making the music that you grew up to, and you can never really get away from it. So it's like, and I guess that's like so relevant for a lot of people.
I guess it's always trying to go back to that moment where you felt the happiest. I think that's what you always hold on to.
I think you're right.
Some people have that with their looks as well, don't they? Say when people get older, they will keep that the aesthetic,
that look of that
when
era.
they felt the most confident and the happiest. So I guess with music, it's a similar thing.
And I remember going to the Coronet when I was...
Oh, wow.
I can't remember how old I was. I think I was like 14. I think I was in year 9 or something. I went to the Coronet and I saw MIA play. And,
I went to that one.
Were you there?
With Santi Gold.
Santi Gold and Rai Rai, an African boy.
Yeah. That was sick.
African boy.
Yeah,
wow.
and Switch was probably there. Probably
Sindon was the DJ then.
Okay, there you go.
Or maybe Marty or Sindon, yeah.
And I remember being in the crowd and looking up and being like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life." I want to be her DJ one day. And then obviously that happened, which is crazy. And like you say, you end up doing what you loved when you were a kid.
Do you know what? Just to add on that, because that's what I was talking about with the fidget thing and that era was really special. What MIA and Santi and them lot were doing and Switch and you as well was really special because it was like an amalgamation of Be More and Jersey. Before even Jersey was out, really. It was like Be More, British thing, like what Diplo was doing and stuff. And it was like this mad like amalgamation of everything, like dance hall, and
it had all the sounds of the diaspora coming into it.
It was proper like brocking out music, like horns, everything, like hard drums.
I followed that show to Cornet because I saw it in Bristol and I was like, I need to go and see that again because I was so inspired by it, and especially Santi and her two dancers.
Yeah, amazing.
Like it was bad.
Visually, it was excellent. Like the lighting was so cool. Obviously, MIA is such a colourful and creative artist. She does all her set design herself, all her costume, everything. And it was just so. It was like, I don't know. I remember leaving and just being blown away.
Yeah,
I was quite young at the time, but still to this day, you can't see a show like that.
Good show to
I feel like we've missed out. I feel like it's just very.
I know, I know.
True moment, and I wasn't there.
Well, no, they took me there. I was there. Then.
Kind of
we got
free.
the lighting. We got the.
We're kind of on the guest list, to be honest.
I guess the one I really wish I'd been to, like, because I think they tried to bring a bit of that vibe to that one, was Public Enemy at Brixton Academy. I always hear about this Public Enemy show at Brixton Academy, and it's like, there's that sample in it, and it's Flavor Flav going, "Hey London," and then you can hear all these horns and everything going off. I feel like that whole thing was a kind of a bit like that would have been like,
That was
89 or 90 at Brixton Academy and Flavor Flav, so that would have been wild.
Amazing.
Mental to think about that now.
Oh, don't you miss live shows? I can't wait to go
soon
to
come,
live
guys.
shows.
Soon come. Shout out! I want to ask you for some of the people that inspired you to get into music, whether that was as a DJ or as a producer. I guess producer first.
Well, it was, and I was born 77, so like I was in 88 when the Acid House thing was going on. I was only like 10, 11 years old. So although I was hearing this, I grew up on a council estate on the south of England. I didn't grow up here in London. So we were kind of getting things a little bit later than people were in the main cities and stuff. But actually, I was hearing a lot of early sort of tapes from raves through my mates, older brothers and sisters and stuff. But the first producer was actually a guy called Tim Simonon, who did a project called Bomb the Bass, which was like, it was early hip house. It was like UK sort of hip house. It was cut and paste. It was like, I don't know how to describe it, but that sound definitely as a UK thing went on to lend itself to what we think of as hardcore and early UK rave sound.
The We
100%.
The We Are samples of that, isn't it?
There you go. So like for me, it was that, and I was 10 or 11. I didn't know anything about this album, but it was a mate from school who I've not seen since then. I don't think, a guy called Dave Payne. I'll never forget him.
Shout out Dave.
Yeah, David Payne. And it was his older sister, because they moved down from London, that was into all this and was into Bomb the Bass. And there I was just like, I'd never heard music like this. So it was that, and then it was early rave. It was like my stepdad used to buy 12 inches, but pop music, not like rave music, but they used to go and buy all the pop music from Woolworths on 12. But like there was a band called London Beat, which was a soul a cappella single that they had called 9am, and on the B side of that was an acid house tune, really random. And I'd never heard that. That was the first point I heard sort of acid house. But the first people were really like Tim Simonon. Really, I don't think he ever gets enough love. You know, he went on. He did the Nena Cherry album, her big album. He did a lot. He did a lot of stuff around that time as well. I think he lives in. I think he lives in Poland or somewhere now, and he's got a takeaway restaurant or something.
Oh, nice!
It's pretty mad.
So nice.
But big up Tim Simonon. It's mad.
It's mad because that was the first album I ever had as well.
Oh, really? Enter the Dragon.
I was like Enter the Dragon on vinyl.
The artwork, everything.
Yeah,
was just incredible.
The artwork, the inlay sleeve with all the like acid house bits on.
Yeah, that's it. It was a cross between the hip house thing and into acid house culture. It had the culture around it. So it was that, and then it was like it was the Prodigy, really. And then that was a few years later for me, I guess. I mean, during that time, I went to a school that had a sampler and some bits of kit, which it isn't like unusual now, but in 88, 89, that was pretty weird back then. You know, it was all recorders and triangles still, you know. So I was quite lucky I had access to the equipment that made these sounds. So I started sampling and doing all of that. Then the Prodigy came along as the big kind of figurehead act of the rave era. So that was amazing, and I was fortunate. I was 16. I met Liam Howlett before a Prodigy gig, because no one knew what. No one really realizes. No one knew what they looked like then. It was just music. Do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, we stayed in touch as well, because I was making music at school. And like he was like, for about a year before the second album came and then blew up. But he used to help me out with kit, because I was leaving school around then. And he was like, you want to get this big kit, and you can't plug that into there because that won't work, but you can do. It was just mad. Now I look back that Liam Howlett used to like help me out.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's mad. So I was really lucky to.
That's cool.
To be in touch with someone like that. So for me, the influence really that he had was just as a normal bloke as well, which was really, really strange. You know, I mean, we've spoken a couple of times since all of that, and just from a distance now, you know, but that period of my life as a 16-year-old, being so immersed in that music, there was no bigger thing than meeting one of your heroes and then being completely safe for a start, and then just actually feeling like they were like quite like me or people that I was around. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like pop star. It was like a very real experience. It was mad. So that jungle was a big thing for me. I wasn't really deeply into any particular DJs, but it was actually, and I'm going to completely throw a curveball in here, it was mid-90s, 94, 95, that house music clicked with me for the first time. And I was a massive Sasha fan, believe it or not. And like, it wasn't really necessarily music, it was the way he was DJing, like mixing things in key and playing these big long kind of sets. And DJing made sense to me, because playing jungle was just banging about break beats, and I love it. and that was great fun, and it still is now. But actually, the art of DJing, I really kind of connected with through someone who's completely never been in this genre of music we're talking about. But it made DJing make sense to me as a performance. You know what I mean? So
he had a Kiss FM show, didn't he?
He did, early 90s, yeah, for sure, yeah. So those are the key ones. There's loads more since, even right up to like in the last few weeks from my radio show. Sometimes I hear music.
It was me, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. Sorry, yeah. She's got me. There's too many to mention, but you know, I think being fortunate to have had that sort of connection at a young age with someone like that for me was the thing that really sparked it off to be real. My parents were like, no, you're surely you're going to go to college and like study to the. And I'm like, nah, this is
like,
me
I'm going to
now.
study in the club. That's the school I go to.
This is me now. This is me.
The School of
That's
Dance.
so nice. That sounds like wicked memories as well, and just
It's
huge
great.
names.
There's so many others. I mean, it's about tracks for me, and now I'm older.
What are some key venues actually?
Oh,
that's
some
what
venues.
I want to know.
Oh, Matt, well, Stearns on the south coast was like.
Did you used to go Stearns?
I've been to Stearns, yeah, just for it shut.
My mate
yeah.
had all the flyers.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, into dance.
Yeah, into dance. Yeah, like the
is
Marmite
like-
ones and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Stearns
on
is the spot.
Bognor Pier there was the Empire Club, and in fact there was a Friday night which used to get Chrome and Time down there. So I couldn't go because I was 15,
Right.
but I used to get the tapes and I used to be really in touch with what's going on. My mate's next door neighbour used to do all the copying of the DATs onto tapes that they would sell.
Oh, is
Okay.
it?
So I used to have first gen copies. So I used to go into school with these first gens of like Chrome and Time, and everyone would be like, I was the tape dealer at school, you know what I mean? So I used to have all of that. It's more been about it's been vibes in music, and what I was gonna say was now I'm a bit older, I understand how it used to work, and these DJs from back then that I and Red Light were well into the early hardcore and the jungle thing. There were a lot of producers that those DJs would go to make the record. So now I'm a bit older and a bit more educated with how things used to happen. You know, those records would never have got made without those DJs in a room with those engineers.
Yeah.
Let's not get that wrong. But there are people like Pete Parsons, Michael Gray, you know, who did Full Intention.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a guy called Michael Gray. He was part of Full Intention, and like I've just found
who's Full Intention then?
they're like a big house act from
Right.
the 90s
Right.
and noughties, and he did that Weekend tune. I can't wait.
Oh,
That was the first time I've sung on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was him. But early
Not the last though.
early 90s, he did all the sub bass stuff.
Oh, is it?
Everyone used to go to him.
Right.
The D-Zone label. So all these labels
so
are
he's
British
D-Zone.
labels
Right.
that all led into what we're talking about today.
Because a lot of them are just like they're like Rinse.
Yeah.
Rinse is like a community, you know. It's like a room people go to and create something.
Yeah.
It's the same back then with like certain studios. Everyone will go to the certain studio
Yeah.
and they'll create a sound out of it, and then
Yeah. But these guys, these engineers, sorry
all right.
just
No,
to
go
finish.
for it.
For me, now I'm educated. I'm like, no way! I can't believe you engineered that tune. You put that tune together. So for me now, a lot of those guys, I would say, are my influences, because although the DJs they were the front of it and they were the creative ideas. For me, being a much more studio kind of person, creative in that way, you know, to look at those kind of people that made those big tracks back then for those big names, they're the ones I'm like, wow, that's. You know, I was blown away that Michael Gray that does all that house music now, and he does the glitter box thing now.
Right.
But he did all that early
okay.
hardcore thing. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just blown my mind. But anyway, there we go.
I was just going to say, sorry, before I forget, there's one person that I've forgotten to mention who was probably, for me as a DJ, was the most
Shadow
inspiring person. The most inspiring person, and that person is One Man. And I think
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a lot of
definitely.
people from my generation as well, he was the DJ.
I was going to mention him actually.
Yeah,
'cause-
and like, especially like we've been talking about this whole episode, the sound of UK bass is such a blend of different genres, and the person who I think does that the best is One Man, and he was so
Yeah,
inspiring for me. And I think he's the reason why I play like I play. Is because that's my
Shout
favourite
out
way.
One Man.
It's my favourite thing to see and
Definitely,
listen to.
when Wonny was like doing his thing proper, it was like at a certain point as well, like when because he was a garage head, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then it moved into dubstep, and then and he just blended it all so seamlessly and made it make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it's One Man who birthed UK bass.
Maybe
yeah,
he
yeah,
is
yeah.
Daddy.
You know what I mean? Because he kind of did
Daddy
like
bass.
he did could kind of like maneuver around funky within the space of all of them seamlessly together in these sets, which were fucking hard to do.
And UK rap as well. I
And
remember
still
when I
house and techno.
On vinyl, some of that as well.
Sure.
Yeah. And a bit of hip hop.
Yeah.
You know, like he was.
And grime.
Yeah. And it was like, what?
But it works. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
no,
And
he made it happen.
It's a hard task to master,
Sure.
and he smashes it.
Yeah, for
I
real.
remember when I first moved to London, I don't think there was never a night where I was looking for a place to go. One man would be like playing 3 of the main parties that were happening in London, but like all 3 would have a different vibe. And you could tell what the vibe was just by the other DJs on the lineup, because they would be really particularly known for playing a sound. One man was just somewhere in the middle doing his own thing, pulling the night together.
Definitely, because I definitely take influence from one man as well, actually, because I know I was going to mention him earlier, actually, but it got whisked off, but he was in my mind because it was like, I'm a hip hop head too, and I love all the other. And he was only one of the ones. Him, Marty as well. Shouts Martello.
He was on in my head.
Yeah. There was only a couple who were mixing house, bit of this, and hip hop. And you know, it was when Rick Ross was blowing up with like
Blood Money Fast.
Yeah, BMF and that, all them tunes, because they were like, who's the producer who did all them? Lex Luger. He was making tunes at the same tempo as like the early kind of like tunes I was doing and some of the dubstep stuff, and so you could mix them in as well, like, and so all of a sudden everything just came together at the same time for people to just have fun with. And it wasn't till a minute when the house got moved right back in a bit more with the tech and stuff, and everyone's like, "Why are you mixing a hip hop tune in?" And we don't want to hear hip hop. We just want to hear that now. And
What was
you're
the sound? What was the sound?
It's
That's
like,
the soundbite now. You got to use that at the
it's
ready.
like I could be, and I was like, "What?" But I want to play the new ASAP Rocky thing. Do you know what I mean? And then it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, everyone started moving away into their own pockets again.
He always told me there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Right.
One man always told me no such thing as a guilty pleasure.
Jack
If you want
Master
to play
as well.
it, play it.
Jack Master
Josie does this very subtly as well.
Josie's a don.
Same thing. Like all these people we're mentioning now, they're all kind of, they inhabit or like breathe this whole hybrid of big city sounds where it doesn't matter what kind of group of kids in school you hang out with, but you all went to the same school, which I guess is like the raves in London, the club scene, the underage going with your big brother or your sister.
It's knowledge, isn't it? Like Josie's knowledge is incredible.
It's insane. And she does the same thing. She'll go from a jungle track to something you don't even know what it is.
Oh, Detroit or like some mad disco edit, and it's Sunday morning on
the thing is, a lot of people and all of us here, it's about from a DJ set. If you go and see a DJ play, whether it's someone you know or not, you might have paid 50 quid to get in there to see them, or might have been a free one. It's just that you need to take away something.
A lot of free
you need
ones.
to take away something with you from that, and the DJ is responsible for giving you something to take away from the night. So just play in like a bland way, not giving anyone any familiarity. You know, people really remember. It's a quote. I don't never know where the quote came from, but people remember how you make them feel. Yeah, and that's the DJ's job.
Absolutely.
And whatever that is musically, wherever that goes, wherever the influences come from to that DJ, or even the influences in the record that is being played. It's just so important. People just want to go out and have a good time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Get caught up and all that, but you can remember as well. Like, you know, like. It's like back to the school of music. Like, you will go to a party and someone will come in with an acetate or something, or a record you never heard before, and they will tear the fuck out of this room. Like the energy, because for me it's about energy. It's not even music. It's like it's
Vibe
about
and energy.
Like if you can turn a room upside down where people are literally licking the wall down and like going crazy, and they're like, oh shit, like. That's like some different shit. And some of those early tunes and that just destroyed places, and still to this day, like you can go to Carnival.
And sometimes the genre didn't matter about that record. That record was a vibe. It was the energy.
Think about
all
the records this year, like drill tracks, hip hop, house, everything.
Mala is actually also another good one, because I've been to like Deep Medi nights before I really like knew what to expect, and I just remember I didn't know any of the tracks that were being played, but any time Mala was playing playing something, it was just
Vibrate.
my feet weren't on the floor. Like, I was
Right.
short and I was just being lifted up in this sea of people
Right.
who were all kind of moving to one beat, and some people knew what was coming, but someone like me didn't know the track or didn't recognize like whatever dub he was about to throw in.
just meditative.
But your heart is like
Feeling
beating
it.
faster, and you feel it in your tummy. You're like, oh my God, this is so good. I've got no clue what it is.
His
Can't-
boiler room is my most outstanding thing. I think it's
Top of
my
the
favourite
top.
ever.
I've
Favourite
never
ever.
seen it. I have to check that.
Check it out.
It's a deep medi
I
boiler
think
room that happened in Hackney Wick.
Carnival's like that though.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's free. The best raves are free. Everyone's out, they're in the sun, they're waiting for a certain tune to come on, and then they just lose their mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's 2 years almost now of music that hasn't gone to Carnival. Like, 2 years of music that hasn't torn the place down. Like,
You know what
there's
it is?
some
A
big
lot of
tunes
it
out there.
is not going out from a punter's point of view, not going out with expectation. And I think if you go into free parties, if you go into those kind of events, there is no bar there. So you got it's
Right.
like that. It's like the classic thing, that big planned night out. Oh, we're going to go here. We're going to go there. It's going to be wicked. Everyone's going to be like
Never as good.
It
Those
never
are
goes
never
that way. You
good.
know what I mean? Because the expectation is
Right.
there.
So
But you,
sorry, go
yeah,
on.
no, I was going to say, if you go in with the bar low, or better still, no bar.
At
Just
all.
go and enjoy
Yeah.
it. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, be in the moment, enjoy it. It's a different vibe.
So I'm a massive festival kid. Right, my first ever festival, I was 13, which is outrageous because if I had a 13-year-old daughter right now and they were up to what I was up to, then I'd be a very angry mother. So sorry about that, Mum. But I think the beautiful thing about festivals as well is, especially when you're that age, is you're not necessarily there to go and see anybody in particular. You end up being taken spontaneously from place to place, and it's very expanding for your mind musically because you're discovering so much within that whole weekend in itself. And I think it's a wonderful thing. Like you say, the spontaneity is so key.
Yeah, 100%.
Just-
A lot of the best moments that I've experienced have always been that. It's an important thing because your whole perception of what you're in that moment is completely skewed, and you can just be. It's like being just slapped around the face with music is so good. You know what I mean?
It's being open
unreal.
to it as well. I feel like we're going down memory lane now with all these good things, and we're also coming to an end of our time for this podcast. I am going to ask you all though, which is. I'm laughing as I'm going to ask the question because if there's one thing we've established in the last hour or so is that UK bass, there isn't actually so much of a definition of what it is. It's more the coming together of sounds that have been created in these underground cultures within the UK and kind of meet somewhere in the middle.
Oh, you summed it up,
There you
Jyoty.
go.
Well
I
done.
thought that
That's
was
it.
decent.
The
In
end.
conclusion.
In conclusion, that was good. That was good. I like that. I like
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to remember that.
But since we don't really have an idea of what the exact starting point was, maybe we can, though, close this or end this conversation by discussing where we think it's heading. I'll start with you, Shadow Child.
I just think it's heading. You can never tell where it's really heading. It's all about people. Who are they? Where are they? Where are they going out? What are the parties like?
Because I think the interesting
was a-
thing is now with lockdown, so
Yeah.
many people have come up and we haven't discovered them in the club. We've just how did we discover them and where do they go?
I hope that young people that are discovering this music for the first time are feeling how I felt back then. Yes, we've got house music as just a household name as a general thing. Jungle is, drum and bass is, whatever the names you want to put on it. But actually, as long as young people or anyone that's new to the sound are going out and getting that feeling that I remember feeling and you guys remember feeling, I think that's the only important thing. I wouldn't say I wouldn't care where it's going, but I don't think it's as important. All I know is all the kind of patchwork of electronic music from the 80s till now that we've had will always kind of intertwine into what's going on. It's just there now. That's where we are. There will be magic things like dubstep that came along when it came along. We will have something that will come one day like Jungle came, and that whole thing of what Fab and Groove did with Rage way back and all that thing. We will have those moments again, but we can't. I don't know. It's very hard to sit here. For me, like I say, as long as people can still feel and experience it in a way that I remember it being, and I still get those feelings at times now, then that's all that's important to me anyway.
Emerald.
It is really hard to say, because how can you say where something's going to go that is such a blend of different things? But I think that it's going to carry on blending even more different things. Like, you're getting so many electro sounds and acid sounds in what we're hearing now, and I think that's just going to keep on evolving rapidly as it is now, really.
And maybe finally it'll lose this negative connotation as well moving forward.
I mean, I hope so, but it might not even be called UK based the way it ends up. But who's to say that that's what that is that ends up there? Do you know what I mean? It's a very complex.
Trippy.
It's a very complex
Inception going on here.
Me and RedLight are going to bring Fidget back this week. We're going to go back to the studio and Fidget's coming back.
Yes.
I mean,
Like Fidget, what a name that was. Do you know what I mean?
Look.
The UK, I'll tell you, the UK, they're not good with names. Good with music, like Fidget, UK bass.
Fidget.
I'm very much up for it going down a more like electro-y techno kind of route, because I'm excited about those sounds that I'm hearing at the moment, because it is switching it a little bit and giving it a bit more of this, like, its own sound rather than it being just a blend. And I mean, of course, you're still drawing from different genres, but
What
that
do you mean by
side
that?
of
You
it,
want to go techno?
not necessarily.
She's switching.
This is where I feel like people
See
like
Bergheim Emerald.
this is where like body people like Bodica and Jyoty was so
Yeah,
ahead.
oh my God.
Because
Swamp.
really that's
Swamp in general, man.
because
Big
really
up
that's what absolutely
Yeah.
that's kind of what that was.
Loafer and that, man, they smashed it
for
with
it
that
to go
label,
for
man.
it to go back there, that just shows how far
Yeah.
ahead they
Yeah,
were,
yeah,
you know,
for real.
the
Yeah.
Swamp
For
thing.
real.
I
For
think
real.
like Hessel Audio do the whole spectrum
True.
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
big up Hessel Audio and Ben UFO, because that is, I think they just nail it when it comes to this sound that we're trying to talk about now. We're trying to define now.
But would they call themselves UK based?
Probably not.
No.
Facts. Probably not.
Facts. They
Do you know what I
wouldn't.
mean?
Probably
But
not.
then what
And I
would
guess
they call themselves?
well, that's the
Get
thing.
Ben
You
in
know
it.
what? A lot of these DJs that we've been naming, and a lot of the newer producers that we've been naming, right? I guarantee you that every single one of them doesn't know how to describe to you what they
Sure,
play.
Yeah.
exactly.
Or what they make. And I think maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
a good thing, right? I would love it for it to be just music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It really should be. But actually, I think we all need, and we've all benefited from these little pockets of subgenres and names.
Go on, say it.
Yeah. It's true though. You
Say
can't.
the word, the two words. Say it 3 times in the mirror.
It's true though. You can't really sit there and sort of turn your nose up at it to like really, can you? You know what I mean? It's like we've all loved it and benefited from it in whatever form it
Had a
is.
good night out to that one.
Had a great UK based night out. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fantastic. Red light. I have to.
I
ask
can't.
you.
What was the question again?
Well, forget about where you think UK based is heading.
what's going on in music in future?
Yeah, or even let's think about it this way, right? We're coming slowly but surely, hopefully. Let's not speculate about that too much. We're coming out of lockdown.
I think what will happen, right? I was just thinking when you were saying it, I was thinking, what was I like before I went raving? I went raving like Emerald Young and da-da-da-da-da. But if I wasn't, I was dancing in my bedroom to a tape. Do you know what I mean? I'd still be getting the same rush from listening to Beyond Atlantis in my mate's bedroom, stoned out my head, than I would be at, at a rave or something. So I'm sure there's kids out there now who are just like, as well, it's back to energy fields and shit.
Yeah.
Like, some people are into maths. Some people are into fucking pottery. Other people just are magnified to like a sound or something, and it just vibrates in their head. And I think there'll be millions of kids out there who are listening to music right now or something, and they're just like, this is me. This is what I want to do. Like how me and Dave were both Bomb the Bass was our first records. Like I never knew that.
Simon, not Dave. Come on. You're going back to Spoon
Oh,
World.
sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
What is your
back
real
to-
name, not Dave?
Shut up, Hugh. Come on.
Oh, government names are being thrown around.
Dave. Well, you think Dave Spoon was my real name?
No, maybe Dave.
You were just
but-
talking about how shocking some of the names are out of the UK, and there you go.
Dave.
Dave.
But, good name though.
Cheers, mate.
But yeah, and I just think there'll be 10 kids out there now who've heard one track who could. You just want to rap it now, don't you? There'll be 10 kids who've heard one track this week who maybe go on and they're going to be the next biggest thing in 10 years from listening to that tune.
Yeah.
There's inspiration all around us, and it's like it's always going to continue. That's what we do here. UK especially is good at that because we're this little island, loads of people live here from all over the world and we all amalgamate and we make this mad music.
True. You have learned a new word today, and this amalgamate.
Is that not a real word?
It is. It is,
right,
but
okay.
it's your favourite. It's been your go-to
Have
word.
I been using it a lot?
Yes, yeah.
But that's what
if we
are.
played a drinking game during this podcast, amalgamate would be the key word.
When we listen back every time you hear amalgamate.
We're just like custodians of this thing at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Man, can't we fucking call it amalgamate?
With an 8 on the end.
UK amalgamate.
Yeah, with an 8 at the end to make it a bit more edgy. Get the kids
amalgamate.
into it.
Yeah, I'll make a 130 amalgamate.
We laugh about this now. Give it like a week, it'll be on some sort of like article on this like very nice snobby platform.
And Hugh will be the pioneer of it.
No, they'll be like, he can't come in. He's from UK base.
Thank you guys so much. I
you.
feel like I could have listened to all these stories and memories for a very long time. But thank you for your time, your energy. You've been listening to my guest, Shadow Child, RedLight and Emerald. I've been your host, Jyoty, and we have been discussing what is and what isn't, and maybe probably it isn't such a thing as UK based, but it is, one big amalgamation. That's the thing. And what was the other thing? 130 breaks.
Hey,
if someone had said it was UK based, this podcast, I wouldn't have come in today. I have to say.
Me neither.
We'll leave it there.
Me neither, yeah. Definitely would have.
I would have just so I could birth amalgamate.
Yeah.
Just 2021 and all that.
We have been coming to you from the Ritz Size studio. I hope you enjoyed and tune in for the next one, which will be very soon.